For our thoughts here on the
Oh,
show.
yeah. I actually haven't seen your grade. I put mine up before yours, so I don't know where you.
I think I shared it though. I think I shared it on air, right? Or at least with you.
You did. Okay, you did tell me that. Oh my god, I forgot to write my tweet length review. That's good.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah,
Jeez.
so when I was going through, all my stuff that's been in storage at my parents' house, like some of the stuff that's behind you and that sort of thing, the picture, I don't know if you saw this in the group thread that I put in there, and I must have been, I don't know, 6th or 7th grade. So this was 1999, going to Disney World, and you can get your, Photoshop your face onto like magazine covers.
Oh,
So I had WWF magazine as Triple H doing the suck it sign next to China.
that's
My
what
big old buck teeth just out there. It's great.
I didn't know. I saw that picture and I was like, what is this? Who is that was just put in there? Oh wow, because I don't know wrestling or anything either. So I was okay.
Yeah, that is definite throwback. And I also have somewhere too. I have a caricature of myself from sometime. I thought you would like that.
Yeah,
one of those,
I want to see that. Let me see. You got to share that. I got to see that.
I think
From
I
when
had
you were like a
braces at
kid.
the time.
Okay. You got to get a new one then too.
Yeah,
You
I
and
gotta update it.
you and the lady.
Yes, yeah, that was long before any ladies were in my life at that point.
That kind of.
Let me get some tweets out here.
Yeah, good call.
Let's see. Oh, here we go. Okay, now we're moving. Now we're working. All right, great. So yeah, so again, very eager. I didn't put in. So the aggregate here is 80. So let me see if I can pull up our episode rundown and get the MCU.
All right, I just got to reshare it from on Facebook, and then which I gotta get. I got to think. So when you had, because you have Facebook, but you don't use it anymore, right?
Yeah, I have to have it,
right,
for work and stuff.
But when you had it, obviously, or you still have, people wish you a happy birthday on there, right?
Oh yeah. That's the only thing I check.
Did you ever? Do you like everybody's thing? Do you do a blanket thank you to everybody, or do you make sure to go and comment on everybody's, or is it a mix?
That is a great question. So I think earnest people, people who are on top of it will respond back and all that stuff. But I think if you're leaving the happy birthday on the wall, then they're not that good of a friend anyway. You're just going to be giving the thumbs up. I just give the thumbs up to everybody. Sometimes I would just do thanks for the B-Day wishes, but now I don't really post anything. So I think the thumbs up is just good enough.
I think that's
real friends at this point are just going to text me or call me.
That's what I think too. I very, very rarely post on anybody's Facebook for happy birthdays, because it's just like, I'm going to text you if I really feel that way. And if I don't have your number, then I mean, that's, I guess like the DSG guys would be the only difference. I put it in the group chat because I don't have all their numbers.
But that's always going on, constantly updating anyway. You know what I mean? It's not like someone, the only thing I really use Facebook for is reminders of birthdays.
Exactly. So I've done sometimes in the past where I did the blanket thank you and then like everything, but usually I go in and thank people, but I might do the blanket thank you this year and go like everything instead of commenting like I've done in the past.
Yeah. Oh, yes. The the people who do that and can remember everyone's birthday. I think that's like a business trick, like part of the secret. Quote unquote. If you want good success and positivity, you say remember people's birthdays, or remember someone's name, or like a small little, tidbit of information about them. So when you see them again, it's, oh, Nick, how's how's the baseball glove, or whatever, something like that. So you don't always have something to talk about.
Right. Exactly. I can't do that stuff. It's thank God for Facebook. I mean, there's definitely some that I have on my phone, but usually, and even then I don't always I don't see the notification or whatever for that. So, oh, look at that. You got the whole list for the whole CMMCU rankings.
Yeah.
That's some good stuff.
Right in here.
Wow. Yep. And this may be, okay, hold on. Where were we on the Venom rankings? We were far apart. No, we were farther apart on that than we are on this, for sure.
This is easy math here.
Yeah.
So we can do that
It
pretty
seems
easily.
of all the stuff that's come out from Marvel, and we'll get into it more. I know we've been talking for bullshit for a while, but I think just looking at the critic scores, this seems like the farthest apart, like the most wide range of reactions, I guess.
Yeah, and again, this kind of comes into maybe something that we discussed, maybe kind of on the heels of Venom here, but it's just it's maybe we put this in a different category, and I think I don't want to speak for yourself, but I think your score probably reflects something that is more reflective of a animated style show than like what you think on the MCU overall, right?
I don't animation doesn't bother me. Well, if it's bad animation, it
Well, I
bothers
just
me.
mean like
Yeah.
like this feels. I know it's the MCU, but it's also not. It's
No,
like the redheaded stepchild.
well, it's not, and I will get into that in our exit survey. But now we don't want to like now we're starting to
Yeah,
step
yeah,
on it
yeah.
a little bit. So let's get this shit rolling. We're putting it off too long.
All right, I love it. That's good. Let's follow the trend here. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Time, space, reality. This is more than a linear podcast. Change My Mind is a prism of endless possibilities. Mark that down, Nick. Where a single host can branch out into different takes, creating alternate worlds than the one we know. Mark that down, Nick. I am Wesley Sykes, and through the other side of the ether is the T'Challa to my Star-Lord, Mr. Nicholas J. Esquire, peeping Tom for hire.
Well, you know what? I thought Dawkins couldn't have insulted me more with his ripoff of your little thing that you do there. You call me coin flip cheater for hire, but you somehow managed to take the cake once again. But I like that intro.
Again, I don't think this is reflective of you so much, but just reflective of the topic that we're at here. And I think the Watcher, of course, we're going to be talking about Marvel's What If. The Watcher is a glorified peeping Tom.
That is a fair point. He's some could probably argue that he's seen every cock on the planet.
Yeah, right.
Think about it. Yeah. So, but yeah, that was a good. That's a good way to put it. I didn't like the branching out into different takes and everything like that.
Not too bad. Maybe we keep that one for a while, huh? It was a Suicide Squad review, and we got this one here. And,
yeah,
who knows?
I like it. It makes perfect sense because we both do two podcasts now, for within the DSG specifically.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I like it even more. And if you haven't already gotten the idea, this week we would regret to inform you that we'll be conducting an exit survey of Marvel's What If. That's my terminology, if you couldn't tell, starring Jeffrey Wright, among others. But before that, Nick, what does 30? What does being 30 mean to you?
Okay.
As of course, I believe as the crow flies right now at the moment.
Yes,
you are 30 years old.
Yes, I am now officially 30 years old. And I'll tell you what, Wes, I think I can encapsulate it in this one moment that I had today on my birthday. I looked in the mirror and saw myself, and I was like, for 29, someone in their 20s, but for 30, fuck yeah, I'll take that all day. So that's pretty much what being 30 means to me.
I like that. Yes. I think 30, the people say all the time, 30 is the new 40, or 40 is the new 30, 30 is the new 20, all that kind of stuff. 30s are just like your 20s, except you have a little more cash in the pocket. You have a little bit more wisdom between the ears here. You know what's going on. You're a little bit more supplanted in the world. You're not like, running around cock first on everything, just making all your decisions with your balls and thinking everything. You got a little bit of wisdom, you got a little bit of sensibility, you got a little bit of cash in your pocket. It's a fun time as someone who's 4 years in.
Yes, the only thing is though, when kids get thrown into the mix, and that can happen. When you're
that's true too. But I'm welcoming that. Again, Phil Dunphy Dad of the Year. That's what I'm striving for.
Oh, look at that, Phil Dunphy Dad of the Year. Interesting. That's okay. Yeah,
of course, we were talking about our definitive dad list. If you want to go back to our June, mid-June episode there.
Yep. Did he get picked in the course of that draft?
I made sure to pick him.
You picked him? Okay. All right. I couldn't remember for sure. I think he was like, he didn't make the initial cut on my first list. I just forgot him for some reason. But
see, I think he was my dorky dad.
Okay. Well, you guys will have to go back to listen to that episode to see where Wes and I landed, because I know this. I did steal somebody from you, and
yes,
definitely
yes,
impacted the vote.
I still got my guy though. At the end of the day, though, I still got the tool man.
Yeah.
But as a follow-up question to this 30-year-old birthday, of course, we do, an episode of choice for our birthdays here every year. I did the what was easily our least listened to episode in a while. Rush Hour 2, original versus sequel here for my birthday. But what will be your birthday episode choice for next week? I know we do this at the end usually, but
I think
occasions
we're gonna do it. We're gonna right now leave it as a TBD because because look, we have good ideas in the hopper. I don't want to have to resort to one of those.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing Dune doesn't come out next week, so I kind of have whatever the fuck I want. Right now the leader in the clubhouse is a Batman Under the Red Hood rewatch. That's the leader in the clubhouse right now, but we will see. That's if I can't think of something better, but I like that one. And I don't know if you've seen that one.
I believe I have. I think I've saw most of that actually, but I might need your HBO Max password.
Okay.
When we get off here now, because now that I don't have cable since cutting the cord, I lost the HBO package. But maybe we can do an exchange of sorts. I have Peacock Premium.
Oh, well, you got the cock.
They're just giving that away.
They're just sticking to the vulgarity with all this the entire way through.
Yeah, exactly. But on the heels of the Batman Under the Red Hood, we have DC fandom coming this week. What I would imagine would be a whole slew of trailers as we head into trending now. I'm throwing you a curveball here. How do you like that inside baseball terminology? But
look at that. All right, so let's see. We got another Eternals teaser trailer. Of course, this is coming out on November 11th. I want to know why the fuck we keep getting this stuff, Wes. Like we get it. It's coming. We're gonna watch it.
That's what they do. That's marketing, baby. That's how it works. I just think, again, a little. I agree with you though. It's less is more. With something like this, let it come out. Kind of let it build up a little bit for you.
Yeah, I mean, and look, we're going to see it at the end of it all. You don't need we got an idea that visually it's going to be awesome. Of course, we expect that with the MCU. You're going to have a fair amount of action. There's a lot to be explained, and that's why it's apparently going to be the second longest fucking MCU movie we've had.
More than 2.5 hours, so that would be longer than Infinity War, just shy of Endgame.
I mean, okay, look,
two post-credit scenes.
I don't expect to come out of this disliking it. I don't. But I do expect that I'm going to feel every bit of this 2.5+ hours of this movie.
Well, Nick, you know how I feel about movies that run this long. It's like it's a guaranteed bathroom break in between, which I don't really like, and especially it's going to be the full two. I believe it's 137 minutes or something like that. Maybe that's not doesn't work out math wise, but whatever it case is, you're going to have to watch all the way to the end with the end credit scene. So like that's also kind of a problem. When we have long movies like this, again, I get like concerned. I put it in the Facebook or the Twitter group thread there. But just to contradict myself, I think if you're going to be introducing like 10 new characters, right, you probably need that time. And I can just kind of picture myself in the future being pissed, like, all right, you have all these new characters and it was a 90-minute movie. Like, what's the big deal here? You need this to be longer. So I can kind of see both sides.
It's very true, and it's a very fair point. And if this was like the X-Men, the main X-Men characters that we care about, maybe like the 90s X-Men, then we wouldn't be complaining about this. But these are the Eternals, who just most people don't care a whole hell of a lot about. But that's where we stand. I think going into this, I'm curious how you feel about this. I want to try and predict your score going into this. So I like that. The last episode. Oh no, you know what? No, I'm gonna make sure I write it down before we see it. We can send it to a third party, so that way somebody out there's record of it that we know someone else knows what our grade is.
They work over here. I like it.
We don't tell one another till we reveal our tweet length review and score in that episode.
Perfect. I think that's great. I like that.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to do that starting with the Eternals.
I think that works out perfectly.
Okay.
Speak of eternal, maybe eternally young, we get a first look at Timothée Chalamet as young Willy Wonka for his upcoming movie, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, as if we needed this again.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, so it's straight up just you're making a third version of this? I don't know.
So I believe this is going to be focusing more on Willy Wonka's childhood. So this is something that hasn't really been explored before, right? I believe Charlie and the Chocolate Factory might have been something that was touched upon or used as source material in the Johnny Depp version.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I think this is going to go back a little bit further. I don't know. I'm not a big Timothée Chalamet fan.
I don't, whatever. Like I'll say this, like it makes sense looking at him. Like it's like, oh yeah, he can pull the look off at least for the character, so I can buy that. But other than that, I've just long thought, why do we need this? Who's gonna see this? Is it gonna do? I don't think it's gonna do well.
Well, yeah, probably not. I don't know. I don't know who this is for. Again, probably another reoccurring question throughout this episode here. But in more Timothée Chalamet news, what in a recent interview, it was told by an anonymous mentor. He was told this by an anonymous mentor that no hard drugs and no superhero movies. That was kind of the advice that he was given. Thoughts on that, and what advice would you have for yourself entering Hollywood?
He was told not to do either one of those. Why the fuck would you tell someone not to do a superhero movie? That's like the thing right now. That doesn't make any sense.
I mean, maybe if he fancies himself an actor.
Okay. I mean, there have been. I mean, Hugh Jackman was an actor, I think, before he did this shit, right? And he's done pretty well for himself. Well, I don't understand that at all.
Well, and probably it's also like, how serious do you take yourself? There's a lot of what's her name? Emily Blunt has said that, although she's done Jungle Cruise, there's been the Martin Scorsese's of the world,
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you don't like this stuff, then that's fine. I understand that. I kind of don't want you around for any of it. Don't just get out of here.
You're skirting around the question here. Is what advice would you have for yourself entering Hollywood?
Don't go on AOL Blast. Nobody watches that.
See. Now you're really leaning hard about 3 months in here to the I think you should leave quotes. Someone who just rewatched it on Netflix recently.
Hand to God, I've only watched it in full once. I think I've watched the first 3 episodes a second time through. I think, but that was like right afterwards, pretty much, just to get the quotes down. Even then, it's just I hear it so much with the other guys all the time.
Yeah, absolutely here. Okay. Have you watched Squid Game at all?
So Lauren was watching it, and just through osmosis, as I'm doing other stuff, I can see it on the TV, okay, whatever, and then I'm like glancing at it, and obviously Billy's gushing over, and everybody else is losing their mind. So I just like look a little bit, and it's like, this shit's pretty intense. And I watched it all, like the last episode. I came in the middle of the games, and then I watched it through to the end of the game. And then there's another answer that you get, question you get answered at the later on in that last episode. But then there comes a point where it's like, I'm just not as invested in this part of it because I didn't watch from the very beginning. But I still really liked what I saw.
Okay. All right, Greg. So I don't really know what's going on. I feel like I watched the trailer of it. I caught a comment from Billy in our group text here saying that he thought I would win. And I'm not sure if that was to take that as a compliment or as a slight. So I didn't know what to think. So I took it as disrespect.
Yeah, I would always just, anytime Billy says anything that feels like a compliment, assume that it's disrespect because he's a dick. But other than that, I don't know. Well, honestly, Wes, I think it could be I want to say that it's somewhat of an insult, but
I think I took it as insulting.
Yeah, it is. I really think I don't necessarily have an interest in doing an episode on it. We could, but I think
I'm going to watch it.
Okay. I mean, it's. I thought it was solid. I really did. Like, again, I didn't see the whole thing, and I still had a fun time watching it. Like, it was.
Is this like Saw meets what's the Purge?
Okay,
is that kind of what this is like?
Okay, right now you're leaning towards not watching it. So let me give you, like, not a spoilery, but like give you a vibe of what's kind of going on. Okay, so you have these people who are given this opportunity to win a shit ton of money by taking part in this series of challenges. They're actually games. They're like childhood games. The first game they play is it red light, green light, if I remember that correctly. They have to play that and a few other games, but there are intense ramifications when you fuck up in some of the stuff. It's life and death shit. So in the course of that, though, you sometimes have to play. You'll have to team up with people, play against other people. Then maybe in the course of it, form an alliance that works temporarily. All this kind of shit.
Oh, so it's a little survivor element here. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good way. There's a survivor element to it too. And then at the end of it all, like, you can win a fuck ton of money that's life-changing. And all these people came from like really shitty situations too. So it's like a social commentary, and but it's like which it's apparent, but at the same time, like, there's a lot of tension and whatnot throughout.
So if this was like an elevator pitch type of thing, this would be think Survivor, and then also think, what would you do for a Klondike bar?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Right? That's kind of what it is.
Let's go with that. Yeah. And then with like,
I'm done. Okay. I'm in.
Yes. Yeah. I really do think if you'd like, I didn't watch the first few episodes, but after I watched a little bit and Lauren kind of caught me up on a few things, I had a great time with it.
Okay, all right, maybe will, maybe I'm not. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't want to give it a shot, and if she wasn't watching it, I wouldn't have given it a shot. In fairness, so
Okay,
but
yeah,
I was in this at the same time. I was in a similar position to where you sit right now. So
yeah, I don't know, man. I felt like this just exploded over the weekend. It's been up and out for I feel like a little bit longer than that, and then I feel like everyone just kind of caught up to it, and it's like, oh, this is shit. This is awesome.
I thought it was just going to be like because it's based in South Korea, and I just thought it was going to be like all these crazy wacky games that we see like in like commercials or whatever, or like video
Wipeout or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
but it's like no, it's like it's way more than that. It's not just a commentary on those games. It's like there's a lot here. So yeah, I think I know you can't watch everything, but I think it's good. I really do.
I'll take your word for it.
But if you're not going to watch that, you know what you should watch as we move into the comic book minute this week, the TLDR event that we have planned for Tuesday, October 12th. If you're listening to this in audio version, you may be able to go and watch Doc and I for this event. If not, you'll be able to listen to it a little bit later on in the week. We are having Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo on to talk about Scott's books that come out this month, and then a little bit later on in here, all these creator-owned books. And of course, the first one was We Have Demons. I mentioned that on the show last week. Greg Capullo is the artist on that, so we're going to be talking to them, and then the audio will be live, I think, on Wednesday. But come watch us on Tuesday, and maybe you guys can get some questions in for Scott. Who knows? But it's going to be a fun time, and Joe and I have been waiting to do this for a while because Scott brought up this idea back in whenever we last had him on. I think it was like March-ish. So.
I love that. That's awesome. You get the host who you get the guests who want to come back, start pitching ideas to you.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, to have the guys who drew Batman for the New 52, I mean, who drew and wrote Batman for the New 52, I mean, the Court of Owls and everything, we're getting the video game now and all that stuff. It's insane to think that we're going to have these two guys on at the same time. As much as we've had Scott on 3 times, Greg Capullo, I mean, it's just as nuts having him on once as Snyder once.
I love that. That's great. You're going to have a fatal 4-way on Tuesday there. I love that. Little take your lunch break. Plan your lunch break accordingly on Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is all you guys are going to get from TLDR this week. We're not doing any books. We're not doing any what's new. We're just devoting our week to Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo and all of Scott-tober. So
as you should. I love that here. So nice, short and sweet with a comic book minute. I think we're safe to move on to the main topic here, right?
Yes, sir. We are. What are we doing today, Wes?
Yeah, we are doing Marvel's What If, of course, another exit survey. And Nick, before we get forward, too ahead of ourselves here, you're familiar with Google Docs, right?
Sure.
Google Drive, all that good stuff,
Yes.
You can, there's a Google form that was just added on there. And I believe you can tweet it out, the survey, make it open and everything. You can create survey questions.
Really?
And I think that's what we should do with exit surveys from now on, is I put it out to the rest of the DSG, as well as the public, put it on our Twitter and Instagram and stuff, and have the people come in here so that when we have the questions already ahead, it's not just our response and your response, but it's also the people's response, because that is what an exit survey is at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we are, the People's Podcast. We haven't said it in a while, but
I know. It's time to get back up. Well, it was an election year last year, so I felt like we really had to drum that home, but now that we're fully supplanted, I think we can take a few years off until the midterms and then kind of ramp things up again.
Sure. However you want to put it. Sure, I can get behind that, Wes.
All right, so back to Marvel's What If here. The synopsis of the episode is exploring pivotal moments from the Marvel Cinematic Universe and turning them on their head. We'll have a little more on that a little bit later, leading the audience into uncharted territory.
This is, of course, directed by Brian Andrews, the easiest freaking name that we've had in here, and I get it wrong right off the rip. Written by Matthew Chauncey, starring Jeffrey Wright as the Watcher, Samuel L. Jackson, Michael Douglas, Lake Bell, Mike Wingert, Clark Gregg, Frank Grillo, Jeremy Renner, Stephanie Penicello, Mark Ruffalo, Tom Hiddleston, Jamie Alexander, and Alexandra Daniels.
And there's a whole bunch more in there too. Of course, Benedict Cumberbatch and Natalie Portman and all that stuff here. But I mean, we could have gone on and on here. So if you think about it, right, it's like if for the most part the actors are playing themselves or voicing themselves here, the roles that they portray in the MCU. So just go with that, right? Otherwise, we here all day.
Right, absolutely.
Box office and critics reception. Well, no box office here, but the critics reception is 7.6 out of 10 on IMDb with a 93-94 split on Rotten Tomatoes, as well as a 4.35 on Google reviews, and 89% of Google users liked this show, Nick.
I hate the fact that when we look at our ratings or rankings for this, that we'll share in a second, that you are more aligned with IMDb and I am more aligned with Rotten Tomatoes.
I know. Well, it feels right.
Yeah, oh, wow. Wow. You know how much that hurts. That is such a fucked up thing to say. All right.
Well, with that, I mean, without further ado, how about you give us your tweet length review and your score?
This was fun. I had doubts about the animation coming in, but I absolutely loved the action. It's not above criticism, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But when it comes to what it all means, they did tie it together well in the end. So I give this a 90 out of 100.
So this is what I was asking in the pre-show here. So like 90 out of 100, this is kind of like off in its own offshoot category here, right? Because you're not saying this is WandaVision, Avengers, Ant-Man level good. You're saying that for what this animated show was in a vacuum on its own, I enjoyed it.
Well, let me be fair. I think that there are only a few times where I say, like, what did I give this other stuff? And then I got to give it this. Like, like this was not an example of where I was like, this is what I gave Ant-Man, so I got to give this, that, and that. Right. No, I just gave it a 90, like straight up. So that, like, there wasn't like animation. Yeah, I guess in a vacuum, like, I guess that's the best way to put it. Animation doesn't bug me like it does you. Like, if it's shitty, don't get me wrong, but I didn't think this was.
I mean, I'm coming around to it. Like I said, I've liked the a lot of the DC stuff, the DC animated movies for the most part, and certain things. I thought there was some cool animation here at points, but it was a little wonky. I'm just not a big animated person in general.
Yeah,
and I think that's where we kind of differ in our approach to the score here. Is that I did kind of roll everything in and say, well, where does this rank in the MCU? Because if they're going to tell us that this is part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, then that's fair game, right? Then I have to put it in the same category as the rest of everybody else. So with that said, 70 out of 100, very few highs, far more lows. This show leaves me wondering, what if this wasn't made at all? Thank you. Would we be in any different space? This is the first sign I also think that I'm no longer the key target demographic for the MCU, which is harsh reality. We talk about turning 30. This is probably another sign of getting a little bit old here.
So I felt like, now, of course, you can make the case that this is more for kids, right? Absolutely. Anytime you do anything animated, it's more for kids.
It was, and it kind of wasn't, though. There was some violent deaths and some crude, innuendo type language and topics and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Killmonger episode was a tough one. We talked about that one. That one's a lot. But I think when you look at this, the base reason why I like it more versus you is that it's like, this is for, I think, people who like the comics more, because if you you want events and you love events like that, that's like, when it comes to this stuff, you're here for what does it all mean? Everything, you want stuff to matter. And of course I do too, don't get me wrong, but I also want to get some shit that's just like, hey, let's have some fun. Let's do something different. Like, it's important to the character, maybe the development of the character, but for the grand scheme of things, I don't necessarily need that as much. And that's, reflective on our scores, not just for this, but in general, when we look at some of the other MCU stuff we've done. But I feel like you not liking this makes perfect sense to me. And me liking this does.
Yeah.
So yeah. But just so everybody knows too, in our CMMCU rankings to date, this falls at number 17, the lowest of all the shows that we've done so far. I think the widest gap of anything MCU related we've done so far, which of course Venom is not MCU. And then that puts that in 80 even for number 17.
90, 70. We'll cut it right down in the middle with 80. So that is just ahead of Avengers Age of Ultron and just behind the first Avenger, Captain America here.
Yeah. And it's
what
yours.
I was thinking about too, because with the scores and stuff like that, and I was kind of thinking about this after we did Venom, and my ties to the MCU and putting that level of importance on having that connective tissue and what does it all mean and everything like that. I think that's what makes the MCU great. But now I'm starting to think like in this idea of a comic book mindset. So. Comic books are kind of one shots. They are kind of in a vacuum, right? That doesn't all have to have these big saga events, like a 7-book series like Secret Wars or Infinity War, whatever. Some of these are just interesting stories that are just, what if we did this, right? So I think that's kind of was the approach with Venom 2, I should say.
Yep.
And then this clearly, right, to a different degree.
Yes.
And even though I don't like that, I think that is true to the comics.
Yeah.
And the comic book space has both, right? They have these big anthology things where there's everything, and then there's also these like, hey, these cool little one-off stories here.
Yeah, I mean, and you have just like a main line for a character in general is like an entire what if series for the character. Of course, it's still canon and everything, don't get me wrong, but it's not just like, we're not dealing with these massive events. Now, you're getting massive events all the fucking time in comics, and that's usually something that the industry believes it can bring in new readers all the time, because like, oh, this is happening, and then you get all these tie-ins, but then it can just be too much. I don't get me wrong, like when it comes to the MCU, I care about the larger stuff, but like, yeah, I'd like to see, I don't know, Black Panther go and do some own shit where it's just Wakanda and whatever and dealing with his own life. I don't need to see him going and taking on Thanos and all this other shit. So something like this to me was very welcome when we got the opportunity. So yeah, I mean, like it's, and also I want to note too, this is your lowest MCU related score for anything, lower than Hulk and the Thor movies.
Because I'll never go back and watch this ever again.
But
I'm fairly confident we're not doing a season 2, even though there's going to be one of, what if we talked about Marvel's What If, would you listen to Marvel What If podcast?
Oh, you meant that. Well, yeah. And I wouldn't be, so you think you probably won't even watch it the next time?
I'll probably watch it. But again, like, I think I was so excited, appointment viewing, the moment I wake up, let the dog out, fire up the iPad and let's watch Loki, let's watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier, let's watch WandaVision. I did not have that. And in fact, there were some weeks where I just flat out forgot about it, which was a huge sign for me.
I think, though, if we see a lot come out of this series, like in the live action stuff, because that could very well happen. There's reason to believe that could be just based on like what we see with the characters, and of course the speculation that you first brought up in after one of these episodes. I think if we see 2, 3 multiple characters outside of the one we fully expect to be integrated in the MCU, I could see you viewing this a little bit differently later on down, like, because then it seems much more important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe.
I like it. I like it here. What do we say? Enough grab ass here. What do we say we get into the hard hitting questions of the exit survey?
Sure. Where do you want to start?
Let's start right at the top here. Did we need this show, Nick? Did we need this show?
I would say yeah. I mean, because this is, I think that people who want to see the characters and have them, sure, we're dealing with stuff that like matters in their own little bubble, but it's not necessarily like in the grander scale of things. Although when you look at what happened in the Hank Pym episode, or you look at what happened in the zombies, of course, you're dealing with these larger things that affect those specific universes. But yeah, I just want to see more of these characters that we care about, and just have it be like, this is its own thing. You don't have to worry about it in the MCU's grander scale. And as much as with some of the characters, we kind of ended up needing to worry about it, towards the end and based on where everything's going, it still just felt like if you wanted to watch these just to enjoy them, you're able to do that from the majority of this season.
Yeah, no, I don't think we needed this. And again, like I'm looking at this through the prism of the collective connective storyline of the MCU. Because again, if that's what they're going to market this as in the beginning, saying no, this is all a part of it, and you do need to watch. I don't really think you do need to watch this show to get a full idea. I think there's probably a couple episodes, certainly the final 2, 8 and 9. I think the Doctor Strange episode, those will probably be the 3 main ones, and then maybe the T'Challa Star-Lord one. That maybe that one.
That one's a tough one because didn't we see reports that T'Challa for the second season they were going to do a lot more with that character for season 2 of What If, or at least more with that character. Now you're kind of in a weird spot where you can't, because you said you're not going to recast T'Challa. Yeah. But I will say that when you look at, so I'm looking at it from a fan's perspective, like just pure enjoyment. Yes, we need this, but from when you're talking about what you're saying, which is the way I should be looking at it, I think you made the point for the Strange episode, and then episode 8 and episode 9, we do need this, because I do think you were onto something when you brought that we're going to see that Doctor Strange, the Strange that winked at us or winked at Peter Parker in the camera in the Spider-Man trailer, is not our Doctor Strange. I think it's going to end up being that evil one.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, those are that episode has kind of been at least in our circles kind of shat on episode. I don't know if that was 4, but the Doctor Strange one.
I think it was 3.
But the implications of that are the biggest of anyone. I think even bigger than episode 8 or 9 with the Ultron Vision.
I did not enjoy that episode. I've told you that, but and I don't remember where. We'll see where it comes down in my rankings. I don't know if it's on either of my list, but I'll tell you what, Wes. In terms of importance, that was the most important episode we got up until episode 8 and 9. So it's you were spot on with that right from the jump.
Yeah, and a quick follow up: do we want more of this show?
I do personally. I don't know. I feel like you don't.
It.
Yeah, you don't want it though.
No. Again, maybe not having to do a show right after and have to break it down and really just watch it. Maybe that will kind of change my view on it, my expectations of it, and just to be able to watch it as a fan and not have to look at it with like a tight, keen eye necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that will, but I won't be looking forward to this show when it comes out. And we already know one episode definitely that's going to be in there.
It's the Gamora one, right? Gamora,
right. That was supposed to be in season 1. That's why when she popped up in episode 9 with the Infinity Crusher, the MacGuffin there, they're like, "What is this?"
Yeah, but see, in that right there is an example of why. So I don't like that they did that, but that is an example of why we need this, because maybe. Sure, Wes, maybe you can make the case that, okay, if we're only going to see that Doctor Strange in the MCU, which I think we have a very good chance of seeing that Doctor Strange, I think we have a good chance of seeing that Ultron, if not Killmonger, one of those two.
Captain Carter, definitely.
Captain Carter, I think, as well. But let's just say it's 2 of those 3 characters that I mentioned. If you just saw those 2, like an evil Doctor Strange and out of nowhere, and then like a Killmonger that has the Infinity Stones, you don't think you'd be a little annoyed that, like, how did I not get any explanation behind these 2 guys that are kind of important?
Right. But again, like, if I'm not sure if they were like, I think we're going to see more ideas lifted from this show, concepts lifted from this show, than introduction of like outright characters right away. Again, I think the Doctor Strange, the emo Doctor Strange is going to be in there. I think Captain Carter is going to be in there. I think that might be the extent of that, but I think some different concepts. Again, Spider-Man being more of a leader, his kind of having the Doctor Strange cape on. I think that's something that's kind of interesting. Whether that comes into play, the different ideas that kind of set you up with things. I think Pepper Potts and Shuri, working together in another episode. I think that can kind of set you up with the Ironheart type of storyline, which. People seem to think there's going to be the crossover there with Black Panther characters as well. So I think the concepts of things, I think that's what's going to be what's brought over the most heavily from this show.
There's a lot you can do with this at the end of it all, and of course with what's going on with the multiverse stuff, there's even more you can do. And I will talk more about some things that we want to see. I think that come from it. Do you want to go to that right now?
I think we're there. Yeah, we're kind of on the topic already. Why not?
Yeah. So when you look at what we want to have come over from What If to the MCU, and I would have been fine originally if we didn't have that. Like, if it didn't have ramifications, that's cool. Whatever. It wouldn't have made sense necessarily because it's like, well, we got the multiverse. But I'm fine if you just want to play in this sandbox with the characters and do something different with them. But if we're talking about characters that I want to see, we got to see Doctor Strange. If we don't see this Doctor Strange, I'm going to be surprised. It makes too much sense. I would like to see this Ultron, because this Ultron is definitely is way better than what we got from the original Ultron. I wouldn't mind seeing Killmonger. I think that he would be a good addition. I think he is not what what they did with him here is not what people necessarily wanted, where he became a hero.
I thought Michael B. Jordan kind of mailed it in. With his voiceover work. I know Goom and I had kind of talked about that a couple of times throughout the course of What If. We talked about Marvel's What If podcast. Would you listen? That's not the title of it, but anyway, it felt like he just kind of mailed it in because he was so magnetic on the live action screen.
Yeah, I don't know how much what is it? I don't know how much voice work he's done in the past, but I'll agree. Like that wasn't, he was not one of the better ones in that regard. But We know how good he was initially, and maybe he was. I mean, that's too much speculation on my part, but like, I could still see him coming back and people wanting to see more from this character. And I think there's a lot that can be done with him still, but he'd be third on my list at most that I want to see come over from What If. I'd like maybe Captain Carter ahead of him too. I liked her more than him, certainly. But I think those three villains make more sense and they bring more to the table because it's just new villains. And then I'd like to see that Gamora join the MCU too.
Well, so that's where I want to expand upon a little bit here. The Guardians of the Multiverse Gamora. Why? How would that work? Because there already is another Gamora from a different timeline here, right?
This is true. You're right. That's a good point. She is still there. So that would probably create complication. Well, you could still do it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm sure there's another way. Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't find, okay, so one would think the other Gamora is going to come in, the one that we saw in Endgame. So if she's going to stick around, then cool, that's fine. As long as I just want Gamora back in some capacity because she's a really cool character. But at least have the multiverse, Guardian of the Multiverse, pop up that version of Gamora.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of cool. And it almost feels like a broke ass Illuminati version. Yeah, you have all these different heroes kind of coming together from different multiverses. That feels like what they want to do with the introduction of Illuminati. Whether that actually happens in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, I don't know. That's been speculated. That's a rumor and speculation that's been going on there. But so I think again that type of concept of getting a team of multiversal heroes in one room together. I think that would be kind of good. You okay?
No, my back. I had to crack it a little bit. Don't have Joe
around.
You were
letting out a fart. Nice. And try not to be loud there.
No. That's not my fart face. You'll know it when I do it. You've seen it before. You just don't know. I guess I'm subtle. But
that's good.
The other character, of course, that you'd like to see thrown in the mix too is the Star-Lord T'Challa. I mean, I think that was most people's favorite character from all this, but.
That's not happening.
There's no way it's going to happen. Yeah.
We started talking about this a little bit. What did you think of the animation and the voiceover work?
So I think you make a great point about Michael B. Jordan and Killmonger and how he did. Not necessarily his best performance, but all in all, I felt that the action in this was really good. The animation in general, I at first was like, I'm not going to like this because of the animation. I felt really apprehensive at first.
It's a little wonky.
Yeah, it feels just like. I don't know if it's more for kids or if it's not. It feels like it's trying to be like into the Spider-Verse kind of, but it's just not there. But in the end, I liked it. And what really won me over was the fluidity of the action. I think that Captain Carter's action in this was awesome. Everything we got from the characters in that final movie, the final battle, and wherever they were previously, I thought was awesome. Other than maybe the Thor stuff. And I didn't think Thor was Thor. We'll talk about him more a little bit later. But when you talk about bad voice acting too, I just felt like he didn't match up with his face when you got the close-ups. In general, the close-ups could be weird at times on characters, but Thor's was the worst. That was stuff to me more than Michael B. Jordan, honestly.
See, I thought Thor sounded like, or Chris Hemsworth sounded like he had a fun time with it. And that's the only credit that I give this episode. That it sounded like Hiddleston and Hemsworth had fun.
That's fair.
Voicing the role there and sound like they enjoyed it. Now, whether it lined up well with the animation, I don't know. I know that was a big thing that Goo had a problem with.
I defer to him on that. 100%.
Yeah, he had. I know that was a big issue for him there. But yeah, the animation not crazy for. I liked the stills though. The landscape stills. Particularly when you think about the Doctor Strange episode, and there was all these like black kind of silhouette type stuff, and there would be these huge pulled away shots. I thought that was pretty cool. I loved all, you mentioned the action, but the death scenes, particularly in the zombies episode, I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
And then also with the Ultron Vision stuff, you think of all the deaths that he was able to do and how quickly he was able to do it, right? With Thanos with 5 out of the 6 Infinity Stones. Even the battle with the Watcher at the end and kind of breaking through all the multiverses and shattering the glass, I thought that was really well executed. And again, really kind of lived up to what I expected this show to be. Everything else felt like they were just kind of tippy-toeing. And maybe this will kind of getting into. I won't get into that yet. But other shows or other voices I liked. I loved Lake Bell. From Natasha Romanoff. She was one of my favorite characters from this show.
Yeah, she was good.
But I thought she did a really good job. And if they wanted to bring in, again, her from the live action or into the live action fold somehow, I don't know how you would bring back Natasha, but her as like from a different multiverse, like I think she could do a really good job.
I thought at one point when they figured out where they were going to place Natasha, right, because her whole world had been eradicated by Ultron, that was the original universe she came from. I thought we were going to see her come into the MCU, and then it was like, no, that's not it. But it's still like it felt like she that was. I think we said it after. I don't know which episode it was. It must have been after the the 8th one or whatever. That's the best action we've gotten from Natasha in the MCU period.
Well, you had said that. Yeah. I'm not sure if I was ready to say that. Yeah.
Okay.
But, I appreciated the action there.
So
one thing I didn't mention though, in elements that will be incorporated into the live action MCU, huge oversight on our part. The Watcher, you ought to.
Yeah, we have seen the Watchers thrown in the mix too. So
Jeffrey Wright voiced, and kind of maybe is he going to be playing a bigger role in this? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the first time we saw the Watchers was in it was this one of the Stan Lee cameos.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
Guardians of the Galaxy or something like that.
Yeah, but either way, we should. Yeah, it would make sense that we're gonna see Uatu thrown in the mix in the actual MCU. I agree that will probably happen too, and especially because you're gonna have the evil Doctor Strange thrown in here and everything like that. So yeah, you're right. That he'll definitely him maybe more than anybody's gonna get thrown in the mix aside from Doctor Strange. But one last thing on the animation, because when we did I always go back to the Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, the Constantine and everybody else in DC. You ended up giving that movie, I think it was like an 88, if I remember correctly. You obviously liked it quite a bit.
Yeah.
But you did say at that point that the animation, that's a doc. I feel like you said 4 or 5 points, which fair. Like I understand that.
Could be. I like that more than this.
Right. So
animation wise, yeah.
And I agree with you. That is that and the Mortal Kombat. I know you don't like the Mortal Kombat movie, but I like that animation a lot. Mm-hmm. Do you think that your score would have been higher on this if this was live action?
Oh yeah, certainly. Okay. Yeah, definitely. I think to a degree, I would love to see what that budget would be for that Doctor Strange or any of the Ultron stuff. But
yeah,
I also think that it comes down to some of the execution, just the decisions of the storyline and the plot too, which we'll get to in a minute. But
yeah,
what do you think the show did right?
Mm-hmm. Well, before I say that, I asked that because with the Justice League Dark, I could see you, or I could understand the animation taking you out of it a little bit. I could see you saying on this one, no, like it's just how I feel is how I feel about this animation, or live action, because I understand your frustrations with this. I don't want to put my emphasis on the wrong syllable like that, but here we are. As for what the show did right, I mean, for me, the biggest thing is it had fun. Like, we're seeing characters in a different lens. I would say that I understand how you're going, the first episode where you go and take a movie that a lot of people like, it was fine for what it is at the time and whatever, and now nobody goes back to watch the first Avenger. To go and redo that movie with Captain Carter maybe isn't the best move because, people just didn't, love the Captain America version of it. They're not going to love the Captain Carter version. I still like that episode quite a bit, and I like that character a lot too. And I think that's kind of why I was, didn't have frustrations with it or anything like some other people did in the DSG. But I think that they had fun, and then in the end, you gave people who really, really care about what does it all mean with every single MCU thing. You got a little bit of that. It's going to be tougher to, we don't know for sure what it's going to be down the line, but I think we can say comfortably there's stuff that they're going to, you said it already, there's stuff they'll pull from this in the actual MCU.
Yeah, I don't think that they did many things right as far as my again, the animation wasn't super great. The voiceover work didn't blow me away. I feel like those are two big things when you have an animated series that you have to at least get one right. And I don't think they've really got one of either right, But I did like the direction that they took with Natasha Romanoff. I loved the justice for Ultron. The Age of Ultron was really just more of like a fortnight, maybe 2 weeks or so. It wasn't that long of a time for Avengers Age of Ultron. So I thought, this actually proved like, kind of nerfed him up a little bit with some powers.
Oh yeah.
So I like that definitely. But there's just really not a whole lot, that I liked. I thought the execution of the zombie episode was fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then why don't you tell me what the show got wrong?
Again, I thought this was, you touched on this a little bit, their lack of ability to commit to one way or the other. Again, This felt like, from an animated perspective and so many other elements, that this was going to be fun and hokey and kind of more kid-centric. But the Thor episode comes to mind when you talk about like adult concepts and like, you know, all the sex and everything that they're talking about with Natalie Portman's character, Jane Foster. And so I don't know. It's just all very, some of the stuff just seems like, is this for us? Is this for the kids? I don't know who this is for. Going further onto that topic too, like the Captain Carter episode, I think is a great example of this, is that I don't want to see a different character play out the same events that we saw in a movie, like we did with Captain Carter playing out the same events as the first Avenger. That is a waste of time for me. It's a beat for beat thing. All you're doing is just replacing, you know, the constant. Everything else is the same around you. The one variable, the one little thing that you can change that would have the most biggest change, right, would be the actor, Steve Rogers to Captain Carter, Peggy Carter there. Mm-hmm. That seems really lazy to me. Instead, why don't you make that switch, and then that domino then falls and everything else changes. You know, it doesn't really seem like that's a 1-for-1 swap there.
Mm-hmm. I think
does that make sense? I don't know if
it makes perfect sense, and I'm going to take it a couple steps further. Now, I still did not dislike that episode. Like most, I think like you are in the majority of people that didn't like that episode. Mm-hmm. I like the character Captain Carter quite a bit. I like what they did with her. I liked what they did with Steve Rogers in it too.
She was a little better in episode 9.
Oh, yeah. She was even better in 9, but I do think that you have a fair point. And I think when you look to what happened with Killmonger in the Iron Man story, where you go and change so much shit in that, and it's like you take the Iron Man story and then you kind of step aside and like pull on this loose thread instead. I think they would have been much better served there if they did. I still like the episode. I don't say you have to go and change it, but I think you raise a very fair point that from a plotting perspective, it's like, you know, you just leaned on her.
Lazy, like let's rewrite all of the first Avenger and then just sub out the main actor.
And it's like you showed us later on with the Killmonger episode that you could have done a lot more. So why
and a couple other instances too, right? Because I think even like the Age of Ultron stuff, like I thought that was really cool. You know, just how they were able to kind of get Vision and Ultron together in one, and I loved that. I thought that was really interesting.
So it's they definitely, and you still could have had her go into the portal or whatever and have Red. I don't mind if you still have Red Skull, you still have the Tesseract, you can still do some of that shit, but just you definitely could have made some things different with it, and still gotten across some of the points that you wanted to get across, where like Peggy's still not getting respected because she's a female character. Like I like some of those things that they explored that, but at the same time, I understand it felt in a lot of ways like a carbon copy of the first Avenger. And to me, it's just like, it's not even like your point's fair, but also it's like people like when you look at our rankings for the first Avenger, right? Just to pull those back up real quick.
Yeah, people didn't like it.
I gave it an 83. You gave it an 84, but like, it's still so much further. That's the first thing that's ahead of our rankings on What If. That's like, why are you starting with that? Like, that's where you're going to have her do this. So
right, and again, I don't know. It feels like they did that on purpose because she's going to obviously be playing a role and going to have a beefed up role in the live action suit. You know, you could
have done that, and I would have been fine with it. I'm just like I think what I'm reading with your point is with this, Wes. Why don't you just like, you can still do some of the shit that you did with Steve Rogers, but maybe glance over it a little bit more and try to go on these different paths.
Yeah, or like, go on the different path. Perfect. You hit the nail on the head.
She's a cool character. I loved her. She's one of my favorites, and we'll get to that more. But as far as what I think of first when we talk about what did this show do wrong, I think that you made one of your most important episodes one of your worst. And I know we'll see where Dr. falls in your grading, but I didn't love that one. That was the first one I watched, and I was like, oh, what the fuck? Like, that wasn't like. People are going to fall off on this shit now. That's where I was like, because like everybody was upset about Captain Carter. People love T'Challa, but then it's like, okay, the vast majority of people don't like 2 out of the first 3. But you turned me around on this one. That the importance of it again, and that's where the issue is. Like it's the most important thing until
it's slow though. And again, like something about this, like I don't know if you ever seen the movie Vantage Point, but there's a something about this, or like Groundhog's Day, like where you just repeat the same thing over and over again.
Yep.
That really wears on me. And I feel like I almost get like time claustrophobic, that you're just reliving, like you feel kind of enclosed, and it makes me uneasy.
Yeah.
So I think that didn't really do it justice, but I thought that was a very emotional episode. I think, the animation usually offers that level of disconnection from the audience there. That's why you can be more violent in some cases, right? But with this, I think it's the same way on that emotion. You don't connect to the characters as much, but it was just the opposite here. I thought that one did a really good job of kind of connecting me with Strange, and you could kind of really feel like, oh shit, like he just wants to fix his mistake. He just wants to save a life. And it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And it's like, God, that sucks.
And if you're in Wes's camp and you liked this episode, then that further backs the point of you can go and take a character and revisit the origin story, but then make it a whole lot different. Right. And don't, again, there were differences with the Carter one, and I like that one, but it definitely felt like way too close to First Avenger when compared to everything else, at least.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was, like, I felt you kind of touched on this, but the intention of the show felt unclear at first. Like, and in the end, it's kind of, it makes sense that it was unclear. Well, let me rephrase that. It was unclear, and it's like, do you want to matter in the grand scheme of MCU, or are you just here and we're like just having fun? In the end, I understand that it was both, but I felt like we were being led to believe like, oh, this shit matters. And it's like, it can matter, but you're not giving us that right away. So why would you lead with that necessarily? Like, just let people figure it out for themselves. I understand, you want to put all the press out there and stuff we talked about with the Eternals, but I just feel like that was a miscalculation on their part a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I like that. We're in agreement on that one.
Okay, good. All right, so then let's go to our favorite 3 episodes. I'm surprised you have 3.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, I picked 3 here, so I got it. And I think there's probably 4 episodes that I would go back to and watch, but I think, episode 8 with the Ultra Vision, and I kind of wrap 8 and 9 together as one, where that was kind of one story. But if I had to pick one or the other, it would be episode 8. With coming on in second would be the Avengers Never Assembled, with the third one being the Doctor Strange one. And again, that's kind of the implications. And then with the Avengers Never Assembling, again, taking a storyline that we're familiar with and kind of going off in the other direction with crazy Hank Pym, another nod to the comics that we haven't really gotten in the MCU yet. Very, very cool concept there.
Yeah, seeing the oh my God, the Yellow Jacket costume that he created, because he was the Yellow Jacket, was awesome. My brother is a huge Ant-Man fan, and that when him see, like, he saw it before I did, he texted me, he's like, text me when you see this. Right. You're going to know why I absolutely love it. And I was like,
it was a whodunit too, right? That's also awesome. What's kind of cool about it. Yeah.
And that one is on my list. That actually comes in at number 3 for me. Of course, that was episode 3. Then number 2 for me was What If Zombies. I like zombies. I like, The Walking Dead, although I did fall behind on that.
That was fun though. Yeah.
28 Days Later, also the action in that was really good too. And then number 1 for me, you could put 8 in here with me, but like, I already kind of know what's going on with Ultron at that point. I know, what happens towards the end and blah, blah, blah. As much as I like Black Widow, 9 is the one for me. You still get her, you still get Ultron, and all this different shit. I thought that's the absolute best episode. No questions asked for me here.
Yeah, and I think what put 8 slightly above for that over 9 for me, again, was that battle between Uatu and Ultra Vision there, breaking through the multiverses and stuff. I thought that was, really what this show was at its best right there at that moment.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It was either way, it was really good. And for me, like, I could easily just say, put those 2 together. Those are probably my top 4. And I like the T'Challa one quite a bit too, but we'll get to more on that later. What were your least favorite episodes, Wes? Why don't you hit me with 2?
Yeah, Thor was an only child. I think everyone's in agreement there. That was just complete horse shit. Did not understand that. And just aside from the stupidity and just kind of like the nonsensicalness of it all, how they wrote Jane Foster after Natalie Portman left for being like a damsel in distress and not really having much, any importance really in the first 2 Thor movies, comes back and only to be like, Lady Thor and Jane Foster and all this type of stuff. And she comes back to this to voice this role, and she's walking like she's like a horned up 16-year-old the whole time. She's like just completely head over heels for Thor and will do anything for her. She's like no real thoughts about her scientist or smarts or anything. That's not really played upon at all.
This is true.
A big step back.
This is true, but to play devil's advocate, I could see them seeing this Jane Foster come into the MCU, and then you have the other Jane Foster, and then she kind of looks at her and is like, "What the fuck's the matter with you? He's a freaking idiot. Like, this is worse than my Thor." And I couldn't stand my Thor at the end of it all. But it's a fair point regardless. What's your other one that you didn't like?
Captain Carter. I guess that episode I didn't really enjoy altogether for the reasons that we already mentioned above. But I did think she'd get a little bit of justice in episode 9 there. I thought that was
She was
cool.
she was awesome in episode 9. For me, I'm right with you, Wesley. What if Thor was an only child, or were an only child? It shouldn't it be was an only child. I'm confused by the conjugation there, but regardless, that seems a little weird. But that is what it is. When I looked it up on Google to make sure I had the official name, and then the other thing was with this episode, I did have fun seeing all the different people from Marvel's space verse because it's all convening on Earth. That was fun. Loki was fun, but just in general, I couldn't stand Thor. I actually didn't hate Captain Marvel in this. I thought she was pretty good. But
no, and I thought her portrayal or whoever played her, voiced her character. I thought actually it lent something. I thought Goo brought up a good point here in our other podcast that we do. What if we talked about Marvel's What If? Would you listen to Marvel What If podcast? That maybe an animated spinoff show with this Carol Danvers would be interesting because again, that could be a good use of her superpowers and kind of going a little bit more, seeing that fight with. Who was it? Was it with Alternate Vision?
Yes.
There was another fight that she had too. That was pretty epic.
She fought Thor quite a bit too.
That's right. Yeah. Thor. Yep.
Yes, but I agree with you. What if Carol Danvers didn't leave? Like you could do that. That seems like a simple one. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe it's not as interesting. I don't know. But then for me, I've said it like the Doctor Strange one. As much as it was very, very important, I did not care for what if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands. Episode 4 from the season. It was very important, but in terms of entertainment value, it didn't do it for me.
Right, and again, it's like that to know that this is going to probably play the biggest and the soonest implications from this show, right? With Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness kind of coming out February, I think, March. But anyway, you would think they would do a better job or make that more of a fan favorite and not as much of a slog as it was. Yeah,
I mean, I think there are some people who felt the way you did, and then there are some people who are in my camp too. It's like, okay, this is all we're getting, like that's it. But in the end, it's the most important one outside of the last 2 episodes. So, anyways, do you want to go with our favorite characters from this series or the least favorite characters?
Let's go with the least favorite characters here to start. And it all comes from the same episodes. Thor and Jane Foster did not care for her. I thought Sebastian Stan was pretty bad. Talk about bad voiceover work. I just thought he didn't really care. He had one of the worst jokes, as Goo likes to point out, in the first episode with Captain Carter there. So, who do you think you are? The Queen of England. But Thor and Jane Foster, those were my biggest issues.
Thor is absolutely the worst one of them all. I actually put Tony Stark as my number 2 because it's like he just dies every single freaking time. And then at the end of it all, he gets like, we're getting the Guardians of the Multiverse. And in another universe, this guy saved us from Thanos. He pickpocketed him the Infinity Stones off his hand. Yeah. But no, we don't need him from any other multiverse. There's no way Tony's that smart in the other ones. That just seems so bizarre to me.
Yeah, that's a good question. He did kind of, he might be the big loser of this all. Here.
Got cucked more than anybody, I would say.
Absolutely.
Then we go to our favorite what if characters. And I know we were going to do 3 originally, but my list kind of extended itself.
Sure.
I liked Zombie Wanda. Of course, that's not a character who's going to get top billing necessarily over the main ones, but she was just kind of cool. The first time we see her is like, holy fuck. Red light very behind her. Stuff. Ultron or Ultravision, as we've been calling him. He was great villain. Crazy Hank Pym. I thought he was outstanding. And then my number 1 is tied for T'Challa, Star-Lord, and Captain Carter.
Nice. I like that. I don't have too many disagreements. Actually, I have a few copies here. Mainly my number 1 being Hank Pym, Crazy Hank Pym. Again, you kind of pay that off from the comics and just kind of see that the whodunit style really got me too. I love that. Natasha Romanoff, I thought she was really good throughout all this. Again, the Lake Bell voiceover work was really good. And then Doctor Strange too. So I thought Doctor Strange was really an interesting character. I thought the story wasn't great, but I thought the character development or the execution of the story wasn't great, but the storyline was interesting, and where they kind of went overall with it. I kind of like what they did there.
When you talk about the action for certain characters, and just like, not Strange where he's doing all this crazy stuff and he's got like these animals jumping out of his arms or whatever, like hand-to-hand shit, Natasha and Captain Carter were probably 1-2. in this. Like I understand that it doesn't necessarily do the same for you as live action does, and I get that. For me, it does. I kind of sometimes like the animation more. In like when it's done well, and I thought in terms of that, like the fluidity and everything was like, especially with Natasha.
Beautiful. I love it here, and I think that wraps it up.
That does. Yes, it does. So at the end of it all,
that wraps it up. So
80
this will be the last time we have a 2-man exit survey here.
Yes, sir. That's right. We're gonna have to go over that a little bit more afterwards, but I am very excited to incorporate the audience a little bit more as we do this, and the DSG at large as well. But before we talk about this week in the DSG, let's take a turn into the Discharge Depot.
Yes, all aboard. Rant, rant.
So Wes, I, in celebration of my 30th birthday, went to Mohegan Sun with my parents, my brother, his fiance,
first time?
and Lauren. It was not my first time. I've been there once before. Actually, it was to cover the Red Sox. They had one of their
oh yeah.
What do you call it? Actually, no, was that Foxwoods?
Was it like the winter meetings or something like
that?
Like
winter weekend. Winter weekend.
Weekends.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got all the player availability and all that stuff. So I spent the day there and everything. Maybe you've been there one other time. Oh, I went there for Jerry Seinfeld.
Oh, awesome.
Yes, he did a comedy special there as well. I forget who opened for him, but it was nobody I'd ever heard of. But
Tom Pappas, maybe?
I don't know, but I'll tell you what, Wes, I definitely didn't have the best of luck when it came to blackjack or roulette, which is what I played mostly.
So did you lose any money? You come back, break even?
I might have lost a little bit, but you know what, Wes, when you're going in to gamble, then, I mean, unless it's maybe sports betting, you shouldn't go, if you're doing it like religiously, that is, you should go in expecting to lose some money. So, maybe I looked at it.
And 1-800-GAMBLERS, call that if you have a problem there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, of course.
Love it. Yes, well, speaking of sports and sports gambling, I took a gamble on a little team I like to call the Boston Red Sox. Of course, I'm wearing their practice jersey here. I got Red Sox fever in complete bandwagon fashion since the postseason has started. I probably didn't watch a lick of the regular season, but now I've been all in. Love to watch last night's game. We're recording as they're playing right now, so we'll see that. But I bought ALCS Game 5 tickets probably moments after Christian Vasquez clubbed.
Did you really?
Monster. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So let me ask you this.
See. I don't even know if it's going to happen, and if the White Sox continue to play spoiler here, it's going to push everything back. I might not be able to go.
Oh, the White Sox are toast, man. I have zero faith in the White Sox to go past Game 4. Like, I don't get me wrong, Rodon's nasty and everything, but that offense is nuts, and Lance McCullers is pitching in Game 4, so he's owned the White Sox this season. So that's a little preview for the picks that I got for Tuesday.
Okay.
But let me ask you this, Wes, before we go and talk about what the other guys are doing this week. When you look at the 4 major sports when it comes to the postseason, right? Hockey always gets praised as being like, there's nothing better than playoff hockey. Nothing better. I think that comes down to a lot of people just don't want to watch regular season hockey, so they watch the playoffs and it's like, oh my God, this shit's nuts. Right. And it is ratcheted up, don't get me wrong. But if you were to rank really quickly, or maybe do a Mount Rushmore, if you will, of the 4 major sports and where their postseason is, what would be your 1 through 4 in terms of entertainment value?
Baseball's pretty high, and I got to say the wild card format I've really liked that.
Outstanding.
The one game kind of do or die thing. I mean, it makes every pitch kind of matter. The feel of being in the ballpark, especially like in a place like Fenway, it's a little more historic, Dodger Stadium, those type of places,
Manager has to be way more involved now too.
Yeah. So I think all the decisions, everything kind of gets tightened by 100. So that might be number 1 for me at the moment. Maybe that's recency bias here.
Yeah.
But I enjoy playoff hockey, but I'm not a big hockey guy. I think the NFL, again, with that one and done type of format is nice. I enjoy that. And the NBA is a slog. That's a marathon.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And then you just it's like you usually know
usually chalk. Yeah.
It's one of these, one of the top 3 teams. 2 of the top 3 teams are going to make it. Maybe, the 4th one sneaks in, but.
So after talking it through of the professional sports, we'll go baseball, football, hockey, basketball. With March Madness superseding it all.
Okay. I think that's fair. And I think a lot of people would agree with you on that, especially on that latter point. I think for me, it's always going to be baseball. It's just best time of the year for me.
Oh, I love it.
And then I would probably say I actually probably watch basketball more, but it's tough. If the Bruins are going, because that's the one team from Boston that I still will root for because I never covered them. I'd probably say that playoff hockey is my number 2. And then I probably go, I probably lean towards basketball and then football. But as a kid, I wouldn't say that. I love football way more than I do now.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
of course, with the Patriots and everything too, what they were then makes a difference.
Easy.
But
Makes it very easy.
But then they just won so much. But anyways, Wes, it is time for
This Week in Shared Universe.
I don't know what the hell happened there. But anyways, Wes, this week, what is everybody doing?
Marvel's What If from the Dork. Mac and Goo podcast is doing Marvel's What If. And then we have the People for the Communism podcast doing Kim Jong-il's What If.
Oh,
different alternate reality there for the former Korean leader.
I think it would be better if they did something like, what if we like democracy? What if we supported democracy? What would this podcast be like? But I think that's a, but they're staying on brand. So I think that's fair, but fair from Billy and Rossi, of course. Also from Dork this week, Doc and I are going to be on doing a micro Dork, or I think they're calling them dinks now.
Small Dick Fall.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So it's going to be, we're doing the top 10 horror comics. It's going to be YouTube only. I'll tell you what, this is quite the list. It's going to be
spooky. I like it.
A little bit of a different conversation than the Batman list that we did. And speaking of Doc, he and I are doing our TLDR event as a reminder with Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo live on Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. That will be available in audio version afterwards. Wes, what about Marvel? I'm sorry. What if we talked about Marvel's What If? Would you listen to a Marvel What If podcast?
Yeah, I think we're doing just a short wrap up. I don't think we're going to be doing too much time. I think maybe some expectations. Maybe. I think that's probably
for Hawkeye
the key word.
Or for season 2.
No, just maybe. Like we might do something, we might not.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, all right. Yeah, because Hawkeye's not around till November, so it makes
so we got a little bit of a break here.
And you guys didn't love this season too much, so that makes sense. Okay. And you talked about it ad nauseum here with me, and Goo's doing that with Mac too, of course. Or they've already done it. And then I've heard it both ways. The Pineapple Boys are doing season 3, episode 8 of Psych. That's of course Billy and Doc. And speaking of Doc, you can go follow him on Twitch. The same goes with Shime Time. And then Davey for his streams, he's only on YouTube now on the Dork channel. So Wes, right now it's tentatively Under the Red Hood, the Batman animated movie on HBO for next week. But you and I will talk and we'll see. You guys will just have to listen next week to find out exactly what we're doing, right?
Well, what I will throw out there, what if we did a Long Halloween part 1 and part 2? Because that's also on HBO. It's your birthday, though. It's your birthday.
Okay,
so I didn't want to throw it out there.
Okay, it's my birthday, but at the same time, I also want to be respectful. Like time, that's an hour and a half a piece. So I'm fine with that. I mean, like, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, then I think that would probably be a better move on our part. So why don't we plan for that then?
But as long as you do it, because I don't want to, I don't
I'd
want
rather
to
do
plant
that.
the seed.
I'd rather do that because it's new. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the Red Hood one, but like this is newer. So if you want to watch this, then let's fucking do it. All right, so that's what we're doing for next week. Both the Long Halloween movies on HBO Max next week.
Beautiful. Same bat time, same bat place. Look at that, Nick.